All right, so Paige said this is also a space to talk a little bit, so I want to talk very briefly before I get into my poem. Is that all right? I'm not gonna take a lot of time. So, the first PSI event I went to in 2003, National Poetry Slam in Chicago, there was the African American open mic. It was a packed out space, and at the time, even though there were black poets at NPS, queer poets at NPS, indigenous poets at NPS, because slam is so often a microcosm of the larger world, we still needed space to have our voices centered, right? What I also remember during that time is that in preparing for slam, a lot of my mentors would say, yo, you gotta make your pieces universal so that everyone could grab onto it, right? And what making the poems universal often sounded like was making it palatable to white people, right? Over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of poems that have been centered in blackness. And I found myself at moments like, is this excessive? But then I draw back and I'm like, actually, this is a continuum of one conversation that's like extremely vital and necessary. Saying all that to say, black the fuck out of your poems. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because in many instances, it's one of the only opportunities where your voice is actually being centered, all right? With that being said, I have a relatively new poem. It's maybe about a month old. Relatively new shit, right? So, I understand that as a black man, that even in my death, there's a centering or a priority over that of many black women. So that's what this poem kind of looks at. Anyway, no more talking. Black masculinity, noun. A bullet from a familiar or foreign hand, or silenced voice pushing to break through white noise. Black man talk to black folks about black man death, give him megaphone, microphone, platform. Allies to serve as echo chambers. Give his plight your sympathy, make his struggle your hashtag, post the name of his deceased brethren all over your timelines. Black femininity, noun. Recipient of trickle-down oppression, or the hushed voice drowning in the static baritone of black masculinity. Black man ain't always too interested in talking about black woman death, believes it too much of a distraction, counterproductive to revolution, views her bones as scrap metal to build bridges over troubled waters, assumes that she will get free whenever he does, is unaware of the change in his speech or the way her oppression can never be untethered to his. Misogynoir, noun. Learned patriarchy, or Katy Perry giving credit for naming the grief your grandmother has endured her whole goddamn life. Every dead black woman body doesn't make it to the morgue. Some are forced to stay alive to watch the thieves of their livelihood do shit like score touchdowns or preach sermons or sing songs or make movies or live in the room across the hall. Intersectionality, noun. When you realize you don't have a monopoly on what it is to be oppressed, or the answer to why can't she just wait. Black man escapes from womb of black woman, born a target but with tunnel vision. The bullseye on the breast that nursed him and hips that set him free often do not equate to his idea of struggle. He grows into a violent storm, calls his actions necessary to secure his shelter, becomes the evacuation plan his family needs to survive the eye of him, expects the women around him to be refuge, trusts that they won't submerge because they never do, does not understand when they leave to save themselves from sinking. By default, I am a misogynist, but by way of my mother's genes, I am a creative, archaeologist of language on a steady search to dig up new definition of who I really am, learned early on how to be an antonym to every black woman that gave my life value, well-versed in the etymology of woman shut up. My father taught the same textbook patriarchy passed down by generations of black men clamoring for some sense of control. I have considered myself evolved, said that I've replaced these old ideals with new ones, but when the homies call me feminist, it sounds too close to feminine, and I strike back on the defensive because don't be calling me no double negative. Because the little boy within has frail fists balled up from years of striking against the idea of gender equality, still in need of new definition to break the language barrier between my privilege and my progress, still tethered to an ideal of superiority, needing to change the context of what loving my sister really means, or to stop lying to myself about how well I comprehend.